We use AI way too much on personal questions, to help us make decisions. Be honest, did you ask AI today for its opinion on something personal to help you with a decision? I did that way too often in the past, not trusting my own judgment without asking AI for a second opinion. In this video, I want to go through my kind of embarrassing path from relying on AI to trusting my own judgment again. Let me be the example so you don't have to go through it yourself. Let me start this video with a crazy fact. Just 4 years ago, there was no AI. No AI chatbots, nothing you could easily access. The only people that actually knew that existed or worked with it were scientists experimenting with technology and figuring out what are the capabilities, and programming, all of that. But for us, normal consumers, that was not a thing. And then ChatGPT came around and changed everything overnight, to be honest. Now it's integrated in absolutely everything. Like in your phone, in the Notes app, in your operating system, when you want to write an email, when you want to write a text. Even sometimes when you just want to order fast food, you don't talk to anybody anymore. And not everything is bad, obviously not. But I want to really focus in this video on the psychological part of chatbots, because they are not just tools. Think about it. A camera, that's a tool. A hammer, that's a tool. You don't talk to them. They don't have a personality. But the more often you use a chatbot, the more it knows about you, and it is supposed to act like a human being. It answers like a human being. And now, not just in written form, you can actually talk with it. You just talk on your phone and it answers. That's not just a tool. Because what that means is it tricks our brain, even though we know it's not a person, but we use it differently. I use always like, hey, can you please do this, blah, 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 because I don't want to be rude. But that's not a person. That's nobody there. That's just psychological trick in the beginning, to make it more easy to interact with it. You don't need to know a programming language. You can just use your normal voice, your normal way of talking. And it definitely makes life easier. I used it, to be honest, way too much for this YouTube channel. And even though I never wrote a script with it, I never did that. That was always just me. But like ideation, brainstorming ideas, fleshing ideas out, that I have done that always with a chatbot. Because it gives you the illusion of working in a team. Imagine that. You're sitting together with like-minded people and you want to come up, let's say, with a recipe. What do you want to have for dinner? If it's just you have to think like, okay, what do I want to eat? What do I crave? What maybe groceries are already there? What do I have to buy? And then you come up with maybe like a couple ideas. With other people, when you do that with friends or with family, you ask every single one, like, hey, what do you want to eat? What do you crave? And then somebody has an idea, like, yeah, cool, we have potatoes. We could maybe make like a baked potato out of that. And you have the idea, like, yeah, we can also do veggies. Now that I think about it, good idea, we do have potatoes. And it's like a back and forth. That is something a chatbot kind of imitates. But it cannot come up with its own ideas, especially not in the way you want it to. In the way that represents your language, your way of thinking, in that in that example, my way of thinking. So it became super limited over time, because also over time, two things happen. Either it gets really positive and it just says like, yeah, that's a wonderful idea, do exactly that. Or it saves past chats, it saves stuff into the memory, or you can program it to go a certain way or behave a certain way. And I put in, hey, I don't want to come across like a smart ass. I don't want to, come across like a know-it-all. That backfired, because whenever I wanted, or whenever I presented an idea where they're like, okay, yeah, I'm really sure that's a cool thing, I want to talk about that, the chatbot was putting on the brakes and like, whoa, you're coming across now very much like a know-it-all. You cannot say this, that you really know about this topic. And that's just a dynamic that happens inevitably, like on the side of the chatbot. On the human side, our side, something happens a little bit differently, because if we're not really conscious about that, if we're not conscious about what is actually happening, and that we kind of manipulate ourselves, it's very hard to stop that, because even though we know it's not a person, it feels like a person. Does that mean I think you should never use that for anything? No, because also it would be a lie if I say I will never use it again for anything. We all know these cases. You have to write an email to your landlord. It's boring. Nobody wants to do that. So you write down like 5 words, what roughly the email should be, put it into the chatbot and say like, hey, the email is about this. It's supposed to be on towards my landlord. Put it out there. And it's done. You can check it off your to-do list. Don't have to think about it anymore. The problem comes when it starts to bleed into other parts of your life. And if you're not careful, that can easily happen, because we're all human. And you think to yourself like, hey, I can use it for that, and it was easy, it was fast, it worked. I can also use it to, I don't know, like write an email to a client, or write a message to a more distant friend. The more you use it, the more comfortable you become with it, the less you maybe check what it actually writes. And that's something we should really do at the very least, is read again what it actually puts out. Because at first glance, it always sounds like super solid. Like, that sounds really intelligent. That's a really good take. You have a paragraph, you have a small list. They love their lists. And it sounds great. And then you go through it and you realize, oh, that's a lot of gibberish. And also it repeats itself a lot. It uses so many words and complicated sentences to get the point across. That's another thing. The more often you use it, you kind of lose the ability to actually write an email in a certain voice, or to actually put your opinion or what has to be said in a relatively short way, in a relatively short text, because they love using a lot of words and making it slightly complicated. Also, looking at my notes, good point, past Johannes. To be honest, we are not happy when we're on the receiving end of like an AI slop email. Nobody wants that. Not even from your landlord. Imagine, you have like a problem or whatever, and you write your landlord, and as an answer, you get like a very obvious AI written email. That's not great. So we should also be conscious about that. Like, we don't want to be on the receiving end for that. So maybe we should write a little bit more ourselves again. Because we I saw a reel where somebody said, we kind of lost our ability to bullshit. Everybody, I think, has like a memory being in school, writing a 10-page essay about a book you never read. We all did that. And we just bullshitted our way through it. And it kind of worked. Because we kind of knew what it was about, and we could just bullshit our way through it. And we slowly losing the ability to do so. And on top of that, coming back to me using it way too much for this YouTube channel, we never really actually learn something to begin with. For me, that is really brainstorming ideas on my own, really doing that creative part. I came up with a little bit, and then it gave me the illusion that I'm really good with it, because it came up then with 5 more ideas, and then I put like my own flavor to that. But I did not really get better with it, because I never really did it myself. Same with writing titles. To be honest, I hate writing titles. I hate that part. That feels always so weird, because it always has to be kind of on the edge of clickbait to pop out of the sea of other videos that are out there. I hate that part. But that's part of this. Did I ever really got better? Not really. I watched a lot of videos and then did it with the help of a chatbot, of AI. I don't want to do that anymore, because I want to practice. I actually want to get better. And that's, I think, something that really is a big problem with this. Apart from, if you're chatting a lot with a chatbot, that's like an overthinking machine. Because you put these extra step. Look, I had like a good idea for a video. I wanted to do it, and I was in the middle of everything. And then came the part of, okay, now I kind of need like a title. And through that process, I also asked them like, hey, is this like a good idea? Or is this a good title? Is this like a good idea in general? And I kind of, in a way, talked myself out of it. It's an overthinking machine. How can we get out of this now? Because it is a part of our life now. We don't know if it will ever go away again, if the bubble will burst. We don't know. So let's treat it as it is right now, a big part of our everyday life. So with that comes the realization of, okay, it's very, very, very unlikely that we stop from 0 to 100, no, from 100 to 0, our usage of chatbots, of AI. That's not going to happen. But what we can do, what I advise you to do, is just with one task. Don't do it with one task. You can do it with all the other tasks. You always do it with just with one task. Do it yourself. For me, that is everything to do with YouTube. So I kind of extended that one task a little bit, but that's my goal with it. Everything having to do with YouTube, I'm not using it. So you will notice that you will be taking way longer to maybe finish that email. It will feel weird. You maybe have the urge to ask it back like, hey, can you, I don't know, check grammar? check the spelling, just maybe rewrite it in general a little bit more, make it a little bit sound more, I don't know, more office-like, whatever. And then you already redone it. You have to kind of fight that urge. Sorry, that's just an alarm going on. I don't know if you hear that. It just picked up. So it's with everything that makes our life easier, it's really hard to make yourself do something more uncomfortable on purpose. But you have to be aware that using AI way too much, especially with writing and with just normal activities we did every single day just 4 years ago, we hinder ourselves actively getting better at them or even unlearning them. So again, let me rewind and actually tell you again what to do. Your task is just one thing where you normally use AI, don't use it. Do it like you would have done it 4 years ago. It's not undoable. It's super normal, I guarantee you. Another good side effect of that is you will stop overthinking so much, even for things that are supposed to be fun and creative. We limit ourselves so much in our creative ways, in being fun, in being weird, in being whimsical. You know, just be weird and fun. Don't add like another layer. We are already overthinkers. We overthink already everything. Whatever other people think, how we're presenting. Let's not add another layer of overthinking on top of that. So instead of really feeding this overthinking machine, which is AI and chatbots, instead just follow your impulse with creative things. Be whimsical, be weird. Let's be weird together.